Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Quote of the day: Life is like a garden, you reap what you sow. Today, the topic of my presentation is Scope of Medical Statistics, Data and Variables Concept, Classification of Variables, and I'm presenting it under supervision of my professor, Dr. Sarab Zid. Learning outlines. Learning outlines of my presentation would be introduction to biostatistics, role of biostatistics, application of biostats in public health, data and variable concept, types of variables, recent updates, and MCQs in the end. Learning outcomes. By the end of this presentation, participants will be able to describe introduction of biostats and its role in public health, concept of data and variable, and types of variables. What is statistics? Statistics is the summary of information or data in a meaningful fashion in its appropriate presentation. It is the study and manipulation of data, including ways to gather, review, analyze, and draw conclusions from data. Biostatistics is the segment of statistics that deals with data arising from biological processes or medical experiments. And it all starts with data. Biostatistics usually comprise of following basic steps: formation of a hypothesis, collection of data, application of statistical analysis. The discipline of biostats covers the study of biological experiments and reading the collection, summarization, evaluation of data from those experiments. It also involves information application of the most suitable methods for the compilation of data, demonstration of the assembled data, evaluation and perception of the results, and making judgments on the principles of such analysis. Role of biostatistics. The ultimate objective of biostatistics is to improve the health and quality of life of individuals within a community or population. The main role are as follows: to diagnose the disease and treatment strategy with an estimation of its effects, to determine risk factors of disease, to design, monitor, evaluate, interpret, and record the results of clinical studies, measure, locate, and explain the extent of disease, develop statistical methods to give satisfactory answers to the questions that arise from public health data. Applications of biostats in community medicine and public health. The role of biostats in community medicine and public health are highlighted as follows: to assess the potency of antibodies and vaccines in the field. In demographical and epidemiological studies, the position of original factors is statistically verified. To test whether the variation between two populations is true or a chance incident. To survey the interrelationship between traces in the same population, to measure morbidity and fatality, to evaluate performances of public health programs, to establish priorities in public health programs, to help develop health regulation, initiate administrative measures for oral health, it cooperates in the collection of data, drawing conclusions, and generating orders for graduates of medicine. By reviewing the structures in biostats, a student learns to seriously evaluate articles reported in therapeutic and dental journals or papers read in medical conferences, and to understand the essential methods of measurement in clinical practice and research. Role of biostats in the evaluation and in health planning. Biostatistics mainly covers biological sciences, specifically from the field of medicines and public health. Biostatistical methods are used for planning, conducting, and analyzing data that comes into being from branches of medicine and public health. It deals with the summarization, interpretation of data to get valid and reliable conclusion, and also analyze the positive or negative health outcomes, in health programs or policies in our community. Now, coming on to data. What is data? It refers to a set of values which are usually organized by variables, which is being measured in observational units, that is members of sample or population. An example of data is a data matrix in a spreadsheet program such as Excel or SPSS, as we can see in this picture. Along the upper horizontal line, it shows variables. And down the vertical lines, there are observations, for example, people. And in each cell, there is a value that is the given observational unit value of a given variable. Like this is the picture of a spreadsheet, and here we can see these are the variables, and under these variables, like in vertical lines, this data is being put on. Now, what is variable? Variable is an attribute that describes a person or object, or it is an any characteristic, number, quantity that can be measured or counted. And it is an attribute that varies from one person to another. That's why it is called variable. Now, variable and data. The scientific observations involve observations on variables. The observations made on these variables are obtained in the form of data. Data and variable are not exact, but mostly they are used as synonyms. They are used interchangeably. The variables can also be called as data items. So moving on to classification of variables. The variable is classified into quantitative variables or numerical variables, which are further divided into continuous variables or discrete variables. Whereas the categorical variables or qualitative variables are further divided into ordinal variables or nominal variables. And for the classification of variables, we can also use interchangeably with data. Like we can also say this is also the classification of data. There are two types of data: quantitative data, categorical data. So first comes numeric variables. These have values that describe a measurable quantity as a number, like how many, how much. Therefore, they are called as quantitative variable. Sorry. Numeric variables may be further described as either continuous or discrete. Continuous variables. These are those variables that can take any value within a certain range. There are no gaps between the successive values of the variable. For example, consider the height of plant as variable x, for example. In real situation, the height of plant may be 10 centimeter, 10.1 centimeter, 10.5, 10.8, or 11 centimeter, etc. Thus, between two whole numbers, that is 10 and 11, there are numerous possible values. So such a value is called a continuous variable. For example, height, weight, length, speed. Continuous data or variables can be further classified as interval when it does not have an absolute zero and negative numbers that also have meaning, such as for temperature in degrees Celsius, or ratio when it does have an absolute zero and negative numbers don't have meaning, such as for height variable. Now, the second is discrete variable. It is also called as discontinuous variable. Here, the values which variables can assume are limited to whole numbers like 0, 1, 2, 3. And obviously, there will be gaps between the successive values of the variables. For example, consider the number of petals in a flower as a discrete variable x. In the real situation, the number of petals in a flower may be 4, 5, or 6, or any whole number. There will not be a variable such as 5.5 petals or 4.2 petals. So such variables are called discrete variables or discontinuous variables. These are those variables which consist of whole numbers like 2, 3, 1. So for example, number of brothers, number of petals, etc. Then comes qualitative variables or categorical variables. They have the values that describe a quality, as their name suggests, or characteristic of a data unit, like what type, which category. So they are unmeasurable variables. They are also called as non-numerical or qualitative variables since they give qualitative data. For example, color of flowers, shape of leaves, shape of seeds, etc. They are further classified into nominal variables and ordinal variables. Now, ordinal variables. As an ordinal variable is a categorical variable, observations can take a value that can be logically ordered or ranked. The categories associated with ordinal variables can be ranked higher or lower than another, but do not necessarily establish a numeric difference between each category. For example, academic grades like ABC, clothing size, small, medium, large, extra large, and attitudes like strongly agree, agree, disagree, strongly agree. So these are showing orders. So it is another type of qualitative variable, this ordinal variable. Then comes nominal variable. This is another second type of qualitative variable. In this, observations can take a value that is not able to be organized in a logical sequence. Example of nominal categorical variables include gender, business type, eye color like black, brown, blue, religion, brand, and the data collected for a categorical variable are qualitative data. Now, classification of variables based on sources of data. It could be primary or secondary. Now, primary data, the data originally collected in the process of investigation by the investigator is called primary data. Primary data are more accurate and uniform. It involves the supervision of the investigator. It is time and labor consuming. Biological studies, particularly experimental studies, primarily depend on primary data. Then comes secondary data. It is the data collected by some other person or organization for their own use. It is the data that already in existence for the same or other purpose in answering of the question in hand. They are usually published data by primary investigator. Getting the secondary data is advantageous because it is less expensive and less time consuming. It is frequently used in disciplines such as economics, commerce, agriculture, public health. An example is population census data, national mortality rate, annual rainfall, budget records. These all are the examples of secondary data. And another is research results published in reputed journals can also act as secondary data. These are other types, independent and dependent variables. When we are using bivariate analysis to test for relationship between pairs of variables, we will usually have one independent and one dependent variable. Now, what is independent variable? It is the one that potentially influences, affects, or predicts the other variable. For example, if you are investigating whether age influences income, then age is the independent variable. And it is also called as explanatory variable, and it is not affected by the experiment itself, but which can be manipulated to affect the dependent variable. And other terms used for independent variables anonymously are blocking variable, covariate, predictive variables. The other is dependent variable. It is also known as outcome variable or response variable. It is the one that is potentially influenced, affected, predicted. For example, if you're investigating whether income can be predicted by age, then income is dependent variable. These are other types like confounding variables. These are extra variables which can have an effect on experiment. They are linked with dependent and independent variables and can cause spurious association. For example, in a clinical trial for topical treatment psoriasis, the concomitant use of moisturizers might be a confounding variable. A control variable is a variable that must be kept constant during the course of an experiment. Moving on to recent updates. This is an article titled as Role of Biostatistics in Analyzing Public Health, published this year. According to it, in the US, the significance of biostatistics is indicated within the educational sector as different biostatistics courses such as preventive medicine and epidemiology have been integrated. In some Asian countries, education in biostatistics is reinforced to increase the importance of research. It is found that in certain regions, the application of biostatistic analysis or technique use was found mandatory to reach for significant conclusive outcome in research. Biostatistical methods were also found beneficial in analyzing the drug efficacy and development research. It is used to determine and explain health outcomes in the advent of epidemics and pandemics influences decision makers for public health. Those individuals engaged with analyzing and advising the mitigation strategies towards the pandemic utilize biostatistics data to guide public health practitioners regarding precautions of the current situation. Statistics contribute a major role in public health that is usually helpful in analyzing disease trends and the evolution of relationship of various variables and predictors of public health. Biostats rules and models can be applied to the healthcare data. The vast contribution of biostats was also found beneficial in cancer research. With the use of different statistical tools and methods, evaluation of cancer-causing indicators or their significance can be determined. The role of biostatistician is found unique in safeguarding and protecting public health concerns. Now, moving on to MCQs. MCQ number 1. This is the table below displaying a selection of variables from a study data set like age, gender, height, blood group, LDL, feeling happy or not, number of children, smoking status, and social class. Now, which of the following set of variables show quantitative data? Age, gender, height, feeling happy. B, age, height, LDL, number of children. C, smoke, social class, LDL, height. D, age, social class, feeling happy, LDL.
B.
Yes, B is the right option because all of these variables are of quantitative nature. MCQ number 2. A cafe owner decided to calculate how much revenue he gained from lattes each month. What type of variable would the amount of revenue gained from lattes be? Continuous, categorical, discrete, nominal.
Continuous.
A.
Yes, A, it is continuous. MCQ number 3. A researcher wants to figure out if uncomfortable seats in a classroom will increase the research participants' attention to the lesson and decrease their fidgeting. Why are attention level and fidgeting the dependent variable? Because it is the variable that the researcher changes to see how the other variables will respond, because it is the variable that the researcher is manipulating, because it is the variable the researcher is primarily interested in, because it is not the dependent variable is the uncomfortableness of the seats.
A.
A.
No. Any other guess? C is the right option. Because attention level and fidgeting are dependent variables, and these are the characteristics of independent variables. And the dependent variable is the variable in which the researcher is primarily interested in. MCQ number 4. In the experiment, does temperature affect the time it takes for a reaction to produce 20 ml of gas? Now, in this statement, what is the independent variable? Volume of gas, time taken for a reaction, temperature, nature of a gas.
A.
Yes. No. Independent variable. It is temperature. C. MCQ number 5. A discrete variable is a type of statistical variable that can assume only fixed number of distinct values. Which of the following is not an example of discrete data? The number of computers in each department, the result of a rolling a die, the population of a country, the weight of a babies admitted in neonatal ICU, the number of children with blue colored eyes in a family.
D.
Yes, D is the right answer. The weight of a baby is admitted in NICU. MCQ number 6. A survey was conducted by graduate students to investigate the current situation of students in Pakistan. Some of the variable was gender, level of education, ethnicity, place of domicile, age, marital status, and employee status. Level of education is which type of variable? Discrete, nominal, ordinal, continuous.
C.
Yes, C is the right option. It is ordinal. MCQ number 7. Some characteristics are not capable of being measured in the sense that height, weight, and age are measured. These characteristics are categorized only as, for example, when an ill person is given a medical diagnosis or a person is designated as belonging to an ethnic group. These variables are called qualitative variable, quantitative variable, dependent variable, independent variable, explanatory variable.
A.
Yes, A is the right option, qualitative variable. MCQ number 8. A college teacher intends to find out as to what extent student involvement in learning of boys and girls from rural urban areas is attributable to their socioeconomic status of the family from which they hail. What will be designated as an independent variable in this project? Student involvement in learning, socioeconomic status of the family, rural urban areas, or gender, boys and girls.
D.
Yes, B is the right option, socioeconomic status. MCQ number 9, which of the following feature best describe an independent variable in research? It is the cause in cause effect relationship. It is the fact in effect cause effect relationship. It is the condition or characteristic which is manipulated in an experimental study. It is the variable which is placed under control. It is a kind of variable response. Now choose the correct answer from the options given below. 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 1 and 3. Which of the following pairs best describes an independent variable?
A,
No. It is C. The option like this characteristic, that is, it is the cause and cause effect relationship, and third is the condition or characteristic which is manipulated in an experimental study. It is all about independent variable. So C is the right option. MCQ number 10. An investigator wants to study the impact of a new medication on the blood pressure of patients with hypertension. Which of the following questions will be addressed while dealing with dependent variable? Is the variable manipulated controller used as a subject grouping method by the researcher? Does this variable come before the other variable in time? Is the researcher trying to understand whether or how this variable affects another variable? Or does this variable get measured only after other variables are altered?
A,
Yes, no, it is about independent variable. D is the right option. Does this variable get measured only after other variables are altered? This is the key of MCQs, and
Thank you very much, Dr. Ameha. Very nice presentation. It is a very basic presentation on types of variables. And I am very much sure that each and every of our undergraduate as well as postgraduate student, they are very much clear about the types of variables. So it is something that must be known by everyone because it is just the ABC of data sciences as well as of epidemiology, that the type of variables must be known. The second important thing is about the recent advances. I want to know more about the recent advances and how the different variables they are being analyzed in the latest research articles that are being published. Thank you very much once again, everyone, and please share your YouTube link so that everyone can review all these slides and can revise the important concepts. Allah Hafiz.
okay, ma'am. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.